welcome back to the weekly news roundup. This is the COVID Dystopian edition. These are recorded live Fridays 9 p.m. Eastern at Standard Time. We are going to start and end with the Centers for Disease Control today, folks. So don't let it be said that we're only all about them right-wing wingnut conspiracy guys like Alex Jones. No, we're actually going to be reading data from the CDC. Now, last week's video, first and foremost, man, I should have definitely looked up that population. Pennsylvania has 12.8 million people. I was saying like 5 million because I didn't know. I was like, I think this might be it, but I wasn't sure. Who knows? Maybe that was what I was taught in elementary school or something. I don't know. But anyway, which made all the numbers that I showed look even more impressive for the lack of dangerousness of this thing. And I think there was the other correction I had, and I actually meant to put this in the comments and I didn't. The mask study from Duke, this was done by physicists, not medical people. And all they were actually looking at when I finally got a chance to read the article afterwards. I was kind of going on some headline type stuff. When you got a chance to read it, they were indicating a few of the types of masks are worse than no mask, and then a bunch of masks were better than no mask for particle spread, which carries with it a big assumption. But that's kind of the summary of that, but there are some excellent articles there I meant to put in the article from last week. But anyway, with that as an update out of the way, today we want to talk about how insane this is getting. We're going to end by saying doubling down and believing media hysteria is what is driving the insanity right now. And I'm going to prove it. And we're going to start by proving it by indicating, hey, we have to look at the actual data. Before we do anything, I'm going to hit refresh on this page, just in the odd case that they have updated this page since I have done this last, which they have not. So, okay, actually, that said that it has. All right, so this is updated today's page. This is today's number. So every Friday, CDC releases the data. They're releasing the data for the previous week. So this is data ending August 22nd, which is, of course, is last Friday. And what we're going to look at here is this is the national CDC data. And we're going to point out some places that CDC is doing a little bit of shady things. And I'm going to reference a couple things that didn't make the article list, but I'm going to indicate it as a way that you can get out and do a little bit of research for yourself. And we're going to culminate with this headline down here at the bottom that now the CDC is saying, hey, we might be kind of nearing the end of this. The journalists are like, no, the CDC, there's a big stupid move. In fact, we're going to get to that article here near the end. But first, we need to get an accurate picture of what this pandemic looks like across the United States. So get ready for how dangerous this is. I mean, we are dropping like flies here, people. So key updates. So the key updates just kind of covers the basics. Indicators that track influenza-like and COVID. So this is the first trick. Around July 7th, COVID numbers hit the pandemic threshold. The following week, now all the numbers are reported COVID, flu, and pneumonia. A little bit of shenanigans to keep the numbers a little bit higher. But anyway, the indicators that track influenza-like and COVID-like, so ILI and CLI, and the percentage of laboratory test positives has continued to decrease nationally since mid-July. Guys, it is this week is September, okay? So since mid-July, regionally from week 33 to 34, 6 out of the 10 regions reported decreasing or stable change of status for all of these. 2 regions had an increase in percentage, and 2 regions recorded an increase in ILI, which is not coronavirus, that's flu. All right, weekly hospitalization rates and mortality attributed to COVID-19 decreased during week 34. Mortality attributed maintains above the threshold. Nobody's really telling what the threshold is, but it appears, whoa, I got out of focus really quick. There we are. It appears to be 5.9%, which it hit that level in mid-July. Remember, since then, it's been going down. All right, so virus. So nationally, percentage of respiratory specimens decreased from 6.2% to 5.7% during last week's time. a decrease or remain the same in 8 out of 10 Health and Human Services regions. National percentage of specimen testings positive for SARS-CoV-2 of the laboratory lists as following: public health laboratories, clinical and commercial, 6.1, 5.1, and 5.6 respectively. So why does it turn out that 5.6 seems to be the number? Well, 5.6 appears to be the number because they're doing about 10 times more testing as anybody else, so they outweigh all of the other averages. So outpatient and emergency visits, 2 surveillance networks are being used to track it. So emergency department visits, so this is you go to the emergency room for illness and symptoms. You guys got to guess what that number is. We'll get to it in just a second. Nationally, ILE remains below baseline for 19-week, but is higher than typically seen. Nationally, during week 34, percentages reported for ILE was 1%, the same as week 33. Percentage of visits for CLI decreased from 2.6 to 2.2. That means 2.2% of all emergency room visits are for COVID. In other words, of all of the emergency room visits, 97.8% of those are for non-COVID related situations. 6th consecutive week of decline. Recent changes in healthcare seeking behavior, including information used, telemedicine recommendations, limit ED visits to severe illnesses, increased social distancing are likely affecting reported data from both networks, making it difficult to draw conclusions at this time. Tracking these systems moving forward to give additional insight. Hospitalizations, cumulative. This is cumulative, meaning it never goes down. It's only ever goes up. If it stays flat, it means nothing is being added. Goes up, that's what it is. So cumulative associated hospitalization rates are updated weekly. Cumulative overall hospitalization rate is 156.8 per 100,000, which means of 100,000 people who get COVID, 156 of them actually end up in the hospital. All right, with the highest rates being people 65 years or older, which is 425. So you can't even look at the number of 156 as meaningless. You have to stratify the number because it's radically insignificant looking at anything else. Mortality based on death reports, they're at 7.9. Remember, 5.9 seems to be the magical number, but in order to get this, they have to do pneumonia, influenza, and COVID is what they have to do to keep it above the 5.9 threshold level, because we've crossed that threshold level in July. Ever since July, things have been going downhill. That is a little bit of the shenanigans. And I remember seeing this, and then you'll find a whole lot of articles about it. Of course, Snopes debunked it. USA Today, I think, did a fact check on it. But literally, the CDC says, oh, yes, we hit the threshold level. The week after, they added flu and pneumonia and influenza to the levels to keep it above it. Very interesting. Key points. Nationally, the percentage visits continue to decrease since mid-July. There was some regional variation. Using combined data from 3 laboratory types, we saw a decrease in positive rates down to 5.7. So of every test done, only 5.7 are coming out positive. And by the way, they are forcing people to be tested. Going into every university, every school district, everything, mandated testing. It's so bad, we have to test all these people to figure out if they have it. All right. Percentages of outpatient visits are below baseline nationally. Percentages of visits decrease for the 6th consecutive week. Overall cumulative associated hospitalizations was 156.8 rates, highest among the 56. Weekly hospitalization rates for all ages peaked. Okay, it peaked in April 18th. All right, at 10.1 per 100,000, followed by second peak during July 18th. Since then, it has been going down. Based on death certificate data, the percentage of deaths attributed to pneumonia, influenza, or COVID for week 34 was 7.9% lower than the average 12.3 the week before. That last week, by the way, was high. And the surveillance systems aim to provide the most complete data possible, estimates from previous weeks. All right, so here is some cumulative data. So this is testing data. So remember we said that the testing. So this is just last week, 1.6 million commercial tests. By the way, most other countries have not even done this many tests total. So we're going, look at how bad United States is. They have so many cases. It's because we're testing everything that moves. The Rock just moved across the thing, tested for COVID. And we found out, of course, we saw last week that chicken wings tested positive for COVID-19. Welcome to 2020. Welcome to 2020, man. Oh, I heard a joke the other day. Guy walks into a bar. He says, "I'd like a Corona and 2 Hurricanes, please." The guy says, "That'll be 2020, please." All right. So number of positive specimens is 5.6. Public laboratories, 15,000. Clinical laboratories, 7.4 thousand. Commercial laboratories, 91,000 tests are being done. Commercial laboratories. This is an interesting point because these commercial laboratories are getting paid and kickbacks for doing all these tests. If this all falls off, the business industry goes bust. These charts here will indicate the percentages. So we have on our left chart the number of specimens tested. So this is a scale of 50,000 on the low end to 400,000 on the high end. On the right scale, the percentage positive. The bar charts are specimens tested. The line charts are the percent positives. So 5% is average and 10% is the max. So you can see in the public health laboratories, the black line throughout here is the statistical average. You can see everything below the average, everything above the average. Mostly the only people getting tested are those people who are in there for symptoms, and that is why those groups tend to test more positive. You'll notice that this is half as big as this. This isn't because they're doing half tests, it's because the data is pulled halfway through the week. So the last chart is inaccurate data. You read everything before that last data. So you get, this is the commercial laboratories, pretty much the same token. The only group that's higher here is the 5 to 17, the light gray bar. Again, because the people being tested are the people that are coming on for symptoms. Outpatient emergency, so this is ILE. These are people who have any type of influenza-like, which will include the coronavirus. This black dotted line is baseline. Everything is below baseline. And has been for a long time, people. Ask yourself this question. Do you know anybody who has died of COVID? Do you know anyone who's been sick of COVID? Legitimately sick? One or two, you might know one or two people. I was talking to one guy. He's like, well, my friend had a friend up in another state that had it. That's like saying my friend saw the Loch Ness Monster once. ILE activities. So the ILE activities, this is like influenza-like activities for all 50 states. This is basically the number here is very high. There are 0 places that have high cases. 0 places with, 0 with very high, 0 with high, 1 moderate, 2 low, 49 minimal. In other words, nothing happens. I wish this thing would load. It doesn't because of my, my blocking system, but it shows the entire United States is green, indicating no problems. Emergency room visits. So you can see the orange line is flu, blue line is COVID. You're like, wow, COVID's so much higher. This is the percentage of emergency room visits. 2%. 2%, people. 2%. It's like 2.2 or something. Hospitalizations. Now, again, this one's cumulative. They're not giving us how many changed this week. They're giving us cumulative. So what we see is you see these 2 lines down here. This represents all of the people going to school. You know, don't send the kids to school. Put them in masks and behind things and give no lunch, no interaction, no anything. This is the number of interactions. You see the flat line? It means it doesn't change. Because according to the stratified data, like a total of 6 people have had, like 60 people have had issues in this age range. This group here, next one up, this is only 100 cases per 100,000. This is associated hospitalizations. Of all hospitalizations, of 100,000 hospitalizations, you will find 100 of them who are between the ages of 18 to 49. The next line up is the overall average, which is a meaningless number with how everything goes. And then up here, 50 to 64 and 65 plus. If you're 65 plus, numbers can still go up a little bit. You have to be more careful. This group here, this really isn't even all that bad. More people are dying of car accidents. This is just the data that is the real data. And this is the laboratory confirmed hospitalizations. How many people are in the hospitals? This is how many people are in it. Notice it's the same exact level of people who are hospitalized in early March. In other words, early March, nobody even had it in this country. Open wide up, people. We don't have a problem right now. This isn't right-wing nut stuff like, I can just see somebody just tuned in. Where's he getting this data from? Where's he getting this data from? The Centers for Disease Control. So anyway, let's dive on into the dystopian news. So, of course, with this is all happening, everything's going down. Apple is now releasing the new version of beta iOS 13.7 that has the contact tracing built in. No app is even needed anymore. You don't need the app. It begs a question. If this is really disease on the way out, and everybody kind of sees this because of the, that's what the data actually shows us, why do we need to bake contact tracing for COVID-19 directly into our Apple's operating system? Very good question, isn't it? Because maybe they want something else. Of course, we need to induce people into this, so we have to pay attention to the weather frog on Google, who the weather frog on Google is now wearing a mask, people. The weather frog on Google is wearing a mask now. It's part of society. It's part of the indoctrination. That's what they're trying to do. Of course, what do we do to get people all these tests? You want to minimize the number of people who are going to be subjected to you. So let's just go ahead and have this robot stick a swab up your nose and do the test for you. I can just imagine the robot being like, hey, this one's in the hit list. Kills you. But yeah, now we have a robot. Please remain calm while the robot sticks a cotton swab up your nose into your brain cavity. There you go. So that's kind of exciting stuff, isn't it? And so this is the stuff that's happening. Now, onto our headline. We looked at what the data is. CDC came out this week and said, hey, if somebody is asymptomatic and exposed to somebody who may have coronavirus, it may not even be possible to test them. Now, my overarching point here is that the journalists are actually the ones causing the media scare. So Ars Technica, who knows nothing about medicine and pretty much nothing about science, best I can tell, they come out when the CDC said, hey, you don't need to test everybody anymore. Why do you do that? Because the pandemic is running out and they know it. In the alarming move, the CDC says people exposed to COVID-19 do not need testing. Every single time some article comes out about, oh man, people are not wearing masks in the school. These guys, Ars Technica, they're front page news. This school is not wearing masks. They're going to kill everybody. CDC, the one we're supposed to be listening to, with all these scientists that are telling us what's going on, comes out and says, hey, you don't need to test anything. What do the journalists do? They bash against the CDC. The CDC's lost their mind. Oh, of course, it's Trump's fault. And that's actually what they said down here in the article. Look at the original article. They had, where's it at? It is an unknown source that talked to CNN that said the Trump White House has told them to do this. Let's see, that's what the agency says. Oh, I know it was in here somewhere. Country's premier public health agency, one that is intended to independently make critical health decisions. The CDC's deferral for HHS raises even more questions about its changed testing recommendations against it. The Trump administration had recently undercut and sideswiped the CDC, eroding trust in the agency. Blah, 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 blah. Where is that spot about the CNN? Maybe it was on a different... Oh, there it is. First update, an unnamed official with the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has told CNN that the change of the industry's testing recommendation occurred from under pressure of the upper ranks of the Trump administration. An unnamed person talked to CNN. Yeah, I believe that all right. But in the actual final update, they said, hey, morons, a whole bunch of scientists confirmed that this is what we should be doing. No, nobody talked to CNN. The Trump administration had nothing to do with this. This is us responding to data. This is the problem. Journalists like the left-wing liberal rag of the Ars Technica, they want to carry on a pandemic. So when the CDC says the world's ending, they're like, the world's ending. And when CDC comes in and says, hey guys, this really isn't a huge big deal, the journal's like, the CDC says this isn't a huge deal. We're all dying, people. We're all dying. Look at the number of cases. They're going up. They're going up. They're going up. Guys, in my county, nobody has been hospitalized of this disease in 4 months now. 4 months. That's common. We showed you the data last week. This is actually the current testing update. This is what everybody is referencing. And what they're actually saying is that the changes down here at the very bottom, important you realize you can be infected, spread the virus well, and have no symptoms. And this is what they're saying. In areas where there are limited number of new cases, state or local public health officials may request to test a small number of asymptomatic from time to time. If there's a significant spread of the virus in your community, state and local public health officials may want to test more asymptomatic people. So basically what they're saying is the change here was that, hey, if you do not have a lot of COVID in your community, you don't have to test as many people. And that's really what they're getting at here. But of course, the CDC changes its guideline because in response to the data we just showed you that this really is not all that dangerous anymore unless you're over 65 and have multiple comorbidities, then I'm sorry, these newspaper articles and these journalists that are coming out, it's like, guys, report the news. Don't give you your opinion dressed up as a news article. And by the way, I'll point out the URL for this says CDC loses its mind, says people exposed to COVID-19 do not need testing. I rest my case, people. The only pandemic we have right now is being induced by the news media who wants to cause a panic because it causes clicks and makes them money. If you want to help support the channel, have a look at our brand new Subscribestar page, subscribestar.com/switchedtolinux. You can also check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/TomM. That is TOMM. Thanks for watching, and we will catch you next time.